All right, so have you guys seen what's been blowing up on Netflix lately?
Yeah, what is it this time? Another one of those cookie-cutter action movies.
You'd think so, right? But this
Yeah.
one's different. It's called Rebel Ridge, and it's got everyone talking, critics, audiences, you name it.
Hmm. Rebel Ridge? That name rings a bell. I think I saw it pop up on my Netflix.
It's been impossible to miss, honestly. I mean, it's been clinging to the top of the charts for weeks.
Really? Wow. Oh, so it's got to be more than just your average shoot 'em up then.
Way more. And the critics seem to agree. Look at this 95% on Rotten Tomatoes.
95. You're kidding. That's unheard of for a Netflix action movie. What's the catch?
Well, that's what we're here to unpack, right? What makes Rebel Ridge so special that it's breaking the mold?
Okay. Yeah, you've definitely
Yeah.
piqued my interest.
Here.
Let's get into it.
All right, so for anyone who hasn't had the chance to check it out yet, what's Rebel Ridge all about?
All right, imagine this. You've got this former Marine, right? He's just trying to live his life when his cousin gets caught up in some shady business framed by a dirty cop.
Oh, man, talk about a nightmare scenario.
Right. And this former Marine, he's not just going to sit back and watch his family get railroaded. So he decides to take matters into his own hands.
Okay, so we've got family loyalty, a corrupt system. I can already see where this is heading.
It escalates quickly, my friend. What starts as a personal vendetta turns into a full-blown fight against the entire system.
Now, that's the kind of high-stakes action I can get behind. It reminds me of those classic 70s action thrillers, gritty and morally ambiguous.
You hit the nail on the head. There's a real throwback vibe to Rebel Ridge, but with a modern twist. It taps into this primal fascination we have with anti-heroes. Those characters who operate outside the law to expose its flaws.
Oh, absolutely. We love a good anti-hero. But what makes Rebel Ridge resonate so strongly with audiences today?
Well, think about it. We live in a world where corruption, abuse of power, these things are constantly in the headlines.
Sadly, you're right. It's almost unavoidable these days.
In Rebel Ridge, it doesn't shy away from those uncomfortable truths.
Yeah.
It confronts them head on, forcing us to question who has the power and who are we supposed to trust.
You're right. It's almost like the film is holding up a mirror to our own anxieties about the world we live in. It makes you think, what would I do in that situation?
Exactly. And to pull off a story like that, you need a performance that can really sell that internal struggle, that moral complexity.
And that's where Aaron Pierre comes in, right? The reviews have been raving about his performance, calling him a breakout star. What is it about his acting that elevates Rebel Ridge from a typical action flick?
It's the subtlety he brings to the role.
Mm-hmm.
He's not just some muscle-bound action hero. There's a vulnerability there, a depth of emotion that makes you really connect with his character.
You know what? You're right. There's this one scene I remember where he confronts the police chief for the first time.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly which one you mean.
And the way Pierre holds himself, the tension in his jaw, you can practically see the rage simmering beneath the surface.
It's electric, and at the same time, you can tell he's trying to keep a lid on it. There's so much going on beneath the surface.
Man, you really feel that power struggle. It's like a powder keg about to blow.
Right. And the best part is, he does it all without resorting to cheesy one-liners or over-the-top theatrics.
He lets his performance speak for itself, which is probably why everyone's calling him the next big thing.
Yeah, the breakout star label gets thrown around a lot, but with Aaron Pierre, it actually feels earned.
He's definitely one to watch, that's for sure. But let's shift gears a bit. The article we read mentioned that Netflix might be looking at Rebel Ridge as their next big franchise. What do you think? Could this be their next Extraction?
That's a good question. It's no secret that Netflix has been trying to replicate the success of movies like Extraction and The Gray Man, but with mixed results.
Yeah, some of those sequels and spin-offs, they haven't quite landed the same way, have they?
Exactly. And it makes you wonder what they're missing. What's the formula for creating an action franchise that really sticks with audiences?
Because it's clearly more than just big explosions and fight scenes.
Right. Rebel Ridge proves that audiences are craving something more, something with depth and substance.
So if Netflix does decide to greenlight a Rebel Ridge sequel, what elements from this first film do you think they should prioritize? What needs to stay to make sure it's not just another cash grab?
Well, for starters, they need to maintain that grittiness, that sense of realism that sets Rebel Ridge apart from other action movies.
Totally. You can't lose that raw intensity, that feeling like you're right there in the thick of it with the characters.
And on that note, don't skimp on character development.
Yeah.
The supporting characters in Rebel Ridge, they're not just there as cannon fodder. They each have their own motivations, their own moral compass.
Yeah, you're right. Especially Officer Sims, remember her. She's got this whole internal conflict brewing.
Totally. Like, does she stay loyal to the badge, Or does she listen to her conscience and expose the corruption within her own ranks?
Man, that's a tough one. And then there's Officer Marston, too. He seems torn between his duty and what he knows is right.
Exactly. These characters, they add so much depth to the story, and they create opportunities for some really compelling character arcs down the line.
It almost feels like Rebel Ridge is just scratching the surface of this world they've created.
Right. There's so much potential for exploring the themes of corruption and redemption even further.
And let's be real, who doesn't love a good redemption arc? It's like they've created this whole web of intrigue, and you just know there are more stories to be told, more characters to explore.
Oh yeah, Rebel Ridge feels like the launch pad for something much bigger.
And that's exciting, right? But for me, what I really connected with was the film's exploration of morality. It's not every day you see an action movie that genuinely grapples with the gray areas of right and wrong.
No kidding. We're so used to seeing these black and white portrayals of good versus evil, but Rebel Ridge, it throws all that out the window.
It does, and it forces you to ask yourself some tough questions. Like, at what point does the system designed to protect us become the very thing we need protecting from?
Right. And when that happens, when the lines get blurred, is it ever justifiable to break the law to pursue justice?
Those are some heavy questions, man.
Yeah.
Especially in today's world where it feels like trust in institutions is at an all-time low.
It's true. We're constantly bombarded with stories about corruption, abuse of power. It's enough to make anyone cynical.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Rebel Ridge is resonating with so many people. It taps into that sense of unease, that feeling that maybe the system is rigged against us.
Absolutely. And it asks us to confront a very real dilemma. What would we do if we were in Terry's shoes? Would we have the courage to stand up and fight back, even if it meant breaking the rules?
That's a powerful message. And it's one that I think will stay with viewers long after the credits roll.
It's the kind of film that sparks those late-night conversations. You know, the ones where you start questioning everything and wondering, what would I do? Where do I draw the line?
Exactly. It's like the film is holding up a mirror, not just to society, but to each of us individually. It challenges us to examine our own values and beliefs.
And maybe even more importantly, it pushes us to think about the kind of world we want to live in and the actions we're willing to take to make it a reality.
Well said. So to wrap things up, we've got Rebel Ridge, a Netflix action thriller that's not afraid to ask the tough questions while delivering some seriously intense action sequences.
And with a potential sequel on the horizon, it seems like this is just the beginning of a much larger story.
One that's already got everyone talking and debating. For anyone looking for a film that's both entertaining and thought-provoking, Rebel Ridge is definitely worth checking out.
Couldn't agree more. It's a wild ride with a powerful message, and it just might leave you questioning everything you thought you knew.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder those big questions. Until next time, keep exploring those hidden gems and diving deep into the stories that matter.